The Apache woman's tribe shamed her for being too curvy, yet he loved her anyway. The sun rose slowly over the vast, rugged land where the Apache tribe had lived for generations. The mountains stretched like guardians of an ancient past, and the soft winds carried the scent of sage and earth. In this land, traditions ran deep, and the tribe had long held ideas about beauty, behavior, and what was acceptable for a woman to be. Among them lived a young woman named Ayana, whose name meant eternal blossom. Ayana had always known that she was different from others in her tribe, though not in ways that she could change. Her body was full and curvy, her presence bright and commanding, and her laughter infectious. But the tribe, especially the women who had grown up under strict rules of appearance, did not always welcome such natural confidence. From the moment Ayana had begun to grow into herself, whispers had followed her wherever she went. She could hear the sharp comments, half hidden in smiles, when she passed by groups of women. "Too round," one would whisper. "Too much," another would mutter. Even elders who held the tribe's traditions in high regard sometimes glanced at her with disapproval, shaking their heads at her form and posture. They claimed it was not traditional for a woman to carry herself with so much boldness, for her body to be celebrated in its fullness, for her to draw attention without hiding herself. Ayana had felt the sting of these words, but she also had a fire within her. She remembered the stories her mother had told her when she was a little girl, stories of women in the tribe who had been strong, brave, and free-spirited, who had changed the course of their people's history. She often wondered if those women had ever faced the same scrutiny she did. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that perhaps society's rules were never meant to fit everyone. Despite the whispers, Ayana carried herself with grace. She learned to walk with her head held high, to smile when she could, and to respond to kindness with warmth, even when judgment was near. Still, she could not ignore the ache in her heart, the loneliness that came from feeling like she didn't belong, even in the place she had always called home. One morning, as the tribe prepared for a gathering to honor the changing seasons, Ayana moved through the camp with quiet determination. She helped gather firewood, arranged water containers, and offered guidance to younger children who looked up to her. Children rarely judged her. They were honest in their admiration and often mirrored her confidence. Yet, the adults continued to murmur among themselves, shaking their heads at her choice of clothing or the way her body swayed naturally as she walked. It was during this preparation that she noticed him for the first time. A man from a neighboring community had come to visit, a rare sight in her secluded world. His presence was calm but noticeable. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that drew the eye without demanding it. When his gaze fell on Ayana, it was not with judgment, curiosity, or gossip. It was with genuine appreciation, a soft awe that acknowledged her as she truly was. He approached her with care, bowing slightly in respect, and said, "Your energy is different. It is bright like the sun on the mountain." Ayana was startled. People rarely spoke to her like that, especially outsiders. Most comments were focused on her curves, her appearance, or the things she couldn't control. Yet here was someone who saw beyond all of that. He did not comment on what she looked like. Instead, he noticed her spirit. "I thank you," she replied cautiously, unsure if he would understand the complexities of her life. She had grown accustomed to people reacting to her body first, her character second. For someone to notice her essence, her strength, was both thrilling and frightening. Over the following days, the man stayed close to the camp, working quietly, helping wherever he could, but always observing with respect. Ayana noticed small gestures, how he would make sure the children had water, how he carried firewood without complaint, how he seemed to notice the beauty in simple things. Unlike the tribe members who had judged her, he seemed to exist outside of their expectations. The tribe, however, did not miss his attention. Whispers began to spread like wildfire. "Why does he look at her that way? women asked each other, glancing at Ayanna with thinly veiled disapproval. Does he not see the shame she brings? Men muttered, forgetting that their own daughters had laughter and fullness in their steps. Ayanna, despite herself, felt a flicker of fear. She had always known that being different came with risk. What if this man left, or worse, what if he believed the tribe's criticisms? What if he could not see her the way she wanted to be seen, strong, proud, beautiful in her natural form? Yet every time their eyes met, she felt a warmth, a quiet reassurance that someone could indeed see her without judgment. One afternoon, while they gathered herbs near a stream, he spoke again. "Your laughter is like water running over stones," he said softly, handing her a bundle of sage she had picked. "It carries strength. It carries life." Ayanna paused, feeling a mix of embarrassment and hope. She wanted to hide, to look away, but she couldn't. I am not used to being seen like that," she admitted quietly. "People here, they often see only what they think is wrong with me." He smiled gently, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Then they do not see it all, but I do, and that is enough for me." For the first time in her life, Ayanna felt truly seen. It was not just attraction or admiration. This was recognition of her very being, of her courage to exist fully in a world that tried to limit her. She realized that the whispers of the tribe no longer had the power to define her entirely. There was someone who valued her for everything she was, and that realization stirred a feeling she had never known before: hope. As the days passed, their interactions became moments of solace. While others judged or whispered, they shared small smiles, exchanged quiet words, and supported each other in subtle ways. Ayanna began to see that the world could be bigger than the confines of expectation, that love could exist in forms she had never imagined. Still, the shadow of judgment lingered. At every gathering, every ritual, every moment when the tribe's eyes were on her, Ayanna felt the weight of their criticism. She heard the laughter that was not her own, the glances that cut sharper than any knife. She wondered if she could ever truly be free in her home, or if she would always feel like an outsider in her own people's eyes. Yet the presence of this man, who had come into her life with quiet respect and genuine admiration, reminded her that not all eyes judged harshly, not all hearts sought conformity. Perhaps there was a way to live boldly, to embrace her curves, her laughter, her strength, without losing herself. Perhaps love, in its most honest form, could offer a refuge from the harshness of tradition. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in streaks of gold and pink, Ayanna stood on a hill overlooking the camp. She felt the wind brush her face, heard the soft calls of distant birds, and felt a stirring in her heart she had never known. For the first time, she believed that she could exist fully, without apology, without shame. And somewhere in the gathering shadows, he watched her, silently, faithfully, and with a heart full of admiration. That evening, as the tribe settled around the fire, sharing stories and songs of their ancestors, Ayanna felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear of being judged, of being laughed at, of standing apart. But excitement for the possibilities that lay ahead, for the connection she had found, for the chance to be herself in a world that often demanded she change. She had no idea what the coming days would bring, but for the first time, she knew that she had someone who believed in her completely, and that belief gave her strength to face anything. And so, under the flickering firelight, Ayanna took a deep breath, feeling both small and infinite. The whispers of the tribe were still there, but they no longer held all the power. Somewhere in the vast, untamed land, a path was opening before her, a path of self-acceptance, courage, and perhaps a love that could withstand anything. After the sun rose the next morning, Ayanna felt a strange mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She had spent the night thinking about the man who had arrived in her life. His presence was like a gentle breeze, soft but noticeable, comforting, but also stirring something new and unfamiliar in her heart. She had never imagined that someone could see beyond what her tribe considered flaws and truly appreciate who she was. That morning, as the camp came to life with the sounds of footsteps, laughter, and the clinking of tools, Ayanna went about her usual tasks. She carried water from the nearby stream, helped younger children gather firewood, and tended to the small garden that supplied fresh herbs and vegetables for the tribe. All the while, she could feel the eyes of the tribe upon her, some curious, some critical. The man, whose name was Mateo, had joined her quietly. He helped lift heavy logs, moved baskets of food, and carried water without complaint. Unlike most outsiders, he did not try to dominate or impress anyone. His humility and respect were obvious in every gesture. Whenever he looked at her, there was no judgment, no whisper of gossip, only a quiet recognition that made her heart stir in a way she had never felt before. "Thank you for helping," Ayanna said softly, passing him a basket of herbs. "I know it is not easy to adjust to our way of life so quickly." Mateo smiled, brushing a hand over the back of his neck. "It is easy," he said simply. "Your people work hard and I am happy to help, but it is you I admire most. You carry yourself with strength even when others doubt you." Ayanna felt her cheeks grow warm. She was not used to such compliments, especially ones that felt sincere. "Others, they do not see me the way you do," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "They speak behind my back saying I am too much, too curvy, not fitting their expectations." Mateo nodded thoughtfully. "Then perhaps it is their vision that is small, not yours. You are full of life and you do not need to change for anyone." The simplicity and honesty in his words struck her deeply. For so long, she had believed that the tribe's whispers defined her, that their standards were unchangeable. But here was someone who showed her that a person could see her true worth without reservation. Over the next few days, Mateo stayed close, not in a possessive way, but in a manner that made Ayanna feel safe and appreciated. They worked together in the fields, repaired fences, and carried out small chores around the camp. Each interaction brought them closer, allowing them to learn about each other beyond surface appearances. One afternoon, as they gathered herbs near a quiet grove, Mateo asked, "Do you ever wish things could be different? That people could see the true you without fear or judgment?" Ayanna paused, looking at the soft sunlight filtering through the trees. She shook her head slowly. "I wish it," she said quietly, "but I also know that change is not easy. My tribe has followed the same rules for generations. They do not understand that beauty and worth are not one thing, that strength can exist in many forms." He listened carefully, nodding. "Then perhaps we can find a way together. Even if not everyone accepts it, there is still room for love, respect, and kindness." For the first time, Ayanna felt a spark of hope that went beyond admiration or attraction. She realized that perhaps life could be different, not completely maybe, but enough to allow her to be herself while finding companionship and understanding. Mateo did not pressure her or demand that she fit into someone else's mold. He simply accepted her as she was, and that acceptance was more powerful than any approval from the tribe could ever be. Yet, as their bond grew, the whispers of the tribe did not disappear. Some women began to watch them closely, exchanging knowing glances and quiet murmurs. "She thinks she can have anything she wants," one woman said bitterly. "No man will stay if she does not change." The men, too, noticed Mateo's attention toward Ayanna. "Why does he spend time with her?" one elder asked, frowning. "Does he not see what the rest of us see?" Ayanna, sensing the tension but refusing to let it dominate her life, focused on the moments she shared with Mateo. They laughed together as they worked, exchanged stories of childhood memories, and even shared moments of quiet reflection. Mateo spoke of his own upbringing in a distant community, where he had often felt out of place and misunderstood. Through these stories, Ayanna realized that he understood what it meant to feel judged or different. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. They sat together near the fire, sharing a simple meal of roasted vegetables and corn. Gianna looked at Matteo, feeling a mixture of gratitude and longing. "I never thought someone could see me like this," she said softly. "It is comforting and frightening. I do not know if I am ready to trust fully, but I want to." Matteo reached out and gently took her hand. "You do not need to rush," he said. "I will be here as long as you need. You can trust at your own pace. What matters is that you are brave enough to let someone see you, even when others judge." Her heart swelled with emotion. She had spent so many years feeling unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. Now here was someone who not only saw her but valued her fully. It was a feeling she had never known, one that filled her with both hope and courage. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. They continued to work together, laugh together, and share quiet moments of understanding. Gianna began to feel more confident, not just because Matteo admired her, but because she was starting to see herself in a new light. She realized that her curves, her laughter, and her strength were not flaws. They were parts of her unique beauty. However, the tribe's whispers continued. Some of the younger women, inspired by Gianna's confidence and Matteo's respect, began to question the old rules. "Perhaps she is right," one girl said softly. "Maybe we have judged too quickly." Yet the elders remained stern, warning that traditions were meant to be followed and that deviation could bring dishonor. Gianna felt the weight of their judgment, but it no longer held her in fear as it once had. Matteo's steady presence gave her strength, and she found herself standing a little taller, walking with a little more confidence, and laughing a little louder. One afternoon, as they gathered water from the stream, a young boy approached, holding a small bundle of wildflowers. "For you," he said shyly, offering them to Gianna. "You make the work here easier, and you smile even when others do not." Gianna's eyes filled with tears. She knelt and accepted the flowers, pressing them to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "It is not easy, but moments like this make it worthwhile." Matteo watched quietly, his expression soft. "See," he said gently, "you touch people's lives without even realizing it. You are more than what anyone says about you." The boy smiled and ran off, leaving Gianna and Matteo by the stream. She leaned back against a rock, taking a deep breath of the fresh mountain air. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of belonging, not in the approval of the tribe, but in the knowledge that she could be herself and still be valued, loved, and respected. That evening, as they returned to the camp, Gianna noticed the subtle shift in the younger members of the tribe. Some looked at her with curiosity rather than judgment. Some even offered small smiles, as if testing the waters of acceptance. She realized that while change was slow, it was possible. One person's courage could spark a ripple of understanding, and perhaps her own journey could inspire others to see beyond appearances. As the stars began to appear in the clear night sky, Gianna and Matteo sat together near the fire once more. The flames danced in their eyes, reflecting both the warmth of the moment and the promise of what lay ahead. "I am glad you came," she said quietly. "Even if others do not understand, you make me feel seen." Matteo smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "And I am glad you let me," he replied. "You are a remarkable woman, Gianna, brave, kind, full of life. The world is better with you in it." Gianna felt a wave of gratitude and relief. For so long, she had felt isolated, judged, and misunderstood. Now she felt the possibility of connection, of love, and of self-acceptance. Matteo's presence was more than companionship. It was a reminder that she could exist fully and beautifully, even in the face of criticism. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Gianna looked out at the mountains and the camp she had always known. She understood that the path ahead would not be easy. The tribe's whispers, the judgment of elders, and the pressures of tradition would not disappear overnight. But she also understood something far more important. She did not have to face it alone. With Mateo by her side, she could navigate the challenges, stand tall in her truth, and perhaps even help others see the value of embracing differences. The world was not perfect and her tribe was not perfect, but there was hope. There was courage. And there was love, quiet, steady, and unwavering, that could guide her through the difficulties ahead. And so, as the stars shone brightly overhead, Ayanna felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She was still judged, still whispered about, still navigating a world that did not always accept her. But for the first time, she felt seen, appreciated, and alive in a way that no judgment could diminish. She had found a friend, a companion, and perhaps the beginnings of something even deeper, a love that could survive scrutiny, prejudice, and time itself. The morning air was crisp as Ayanna moved through the camp, carrying baskets of food from the garden to the cooking area. The soft light of the sun glinted off the dew on the grass, but the brightness could not chase away the unease in her heart. The whispers had grown louder in the last few days. Not just whispers, now there were glances, pointed remarks, and subtle laughter behind her back. She felt their judgment pressing down on her like an invisible weight, heavier than any basket she carried. Mateo had been working quietly nearby, stacking firewood and repairing fences. He noticed her tension immediately. "You seem troubled," he said softly, walking over and resting a hand gently on her shoulder. Ayanna sighed, a small shiver running through her. "It's the tribe," she admitted. "They are talking more openly now. Some of them laugh when they think I am not looking. Others whisper about you and me, saying you should not pay attention to someone like me." Mateo nodded calmly, his eyes steady on hers. "Let them whisper," he said. "Their words have no power over you unless you allow them to. You are strong, Ayanna, stronger than they realize." She wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in. The whispers were no longer just words. They were stares that made her shoulders stiffen, laughter that made her cheeks burn, and conversations that stopped when she approached. Even some of the younger women who had smiled at her moments ago now seemed unsure of her presence. Later that day, the tribe gathered for a seasonal ceremony, an important ritual to honor their ancestors and the land that had sustained them for generations. Everyone had to participate and attendance was mandatory. Ayanna walked toward the central area where the tribe was assembling, her heart pounding. She felt eyes following her, measuring her every step. Mateo walked beside her, offering silent support. He did not speak, but the simple act of being near her gave her courage. Together, they approached the fire in the center of the gathering, where elders sat in solemn circles, and the younger tribe members waited respectfully. It began with songs and prayers, the sounds rising like gentle waves over the camp. The elders moved with grace, their voices carrying authority and history. Ayanna tried to focus on the rhythm and the meaning, letting the chants calm her nerves. But soon she felt the judgment return. One of the older women, a stern-faced figure who had always been critical of Ayanna, spoke loudly enough for many to hear. "Ayanna walks as if she is above us," the woman said. "She flaunts what should be hidden, and yet she thinks she deserves admiration. Such arrogance cannot be ignored." Murmurs spread quickly through the gathering. Some nodded in agreement, others looked down, uncomfortable with the confrontation but unwilling to speak. Ayanna felt her cheeks grow hot, and for a moment she wanted to disappear, to sink into the earth and escape the judgment that felt suffocating. Mateo stepped forward, placing a protective hand gently on her back. His voice, calm yet firm, carried through the whispers. "She does not flaunt anything," he said. "She simply exists with courage and pride. There is nothing wrong with being full of life, strong and confident. That is something to respect, not shame." A silence fell over the crowd. The elders shifted in their seats, surprised by Mateo's boldness. The younger members exchanged glances, unsure how to react to someone defending a woman who had long been the subject of gossip. The older woman's face tightened with anger. "You are an outsider," she spat. You do not understand our ways. You cannot tell us what to think or whom to respect. Mateo met her gaze steadily. I may be an outsider in your eyes, but I am not blind. I see her strength, her courage, her beauty, not just in appearance, but in the way she moves through life, helping others, facing judgment, and remaining true to herself. That is something anyone should admire. Yana felt a swell of emotion she could hardly name. Fear, relief, and gratitude mingled together as she realized he was standing for her in a way that no one else had dared. She had always felt isolated, but now she understood that she had an ally, a person who valued her not despite her differences, but because of them. The older woman huffed, looking around at the tribe as if expecting support for her words. Some younger women looked conflicted, while a few men shifted uncomfortably. The tension was palpable. Yana noticed that some of the elders avoided her gaze, perhaps questioning their own judgments in light of Mateo's words. After a long pause, another elder, a man known for his fairness and wisdom, spoke quietly but clearly. We must remember that our traditions guide us, yes, but they do not define every person's worth. There is merit in courage, in kindness, and in honesty. If we forget these qualities, we forget the true spirit of our people. The crowd murmured, some nodding slowly. Yana felt her heart lift slightly. Maybe change was possible. Maybe respect could be earned not just by following tradition, but by showing integrity, courage, and love. Despite this small moment of hope, the older woman was not ready to yield. She pointed toward Ayana, her voice sharp. She may have someone to defend her today, but what happens when he leaves? Will she stand alone then? Is this the lesson we want to teach our children, that defiance is more important than respect? Mateo remained calm, his hand never leaving Ayana's back. She does not stand alone, he said softly but firmly. She stands with everyone who values truth and courage, and I will be here, not just for today, but for as long as she needs. You may not understand, but that does not make it wrong. The older woman's eyes narrowed, but she said no more. The fire crackled between them, and the murmurs of the tribe slowly faded into a tense silence. Yana felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride, because she had never felt more supported and recognized. Fear, because she understood that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be more judgments, more tests of courage, and more moments when she would have to choose between hiding herself or standing tall. After the ceremony, Ayana walked quietly toward the stream at the edge of the camp, Mateo following at a careful distance. She knelt by the water, letting her fingers ripple across the surface, watching the reflection of the sky and trees. You were incredible, Mateo said softly, sitting beside her. You faced them without anger, without retreat. That is real courage, Ayana, not hiding, not pretending, simply being yourself. Ayana looked down at the water, unsure if she believed him fully. I was scared, she admitted. I wanted to disappear. The whispers, the stares, it is so hard. I don't know if I am ready to face this every day. Mateo took her hand gently. It will not be easy. Courage never is, but you are not alone. And every time you stand tall, you inspire someone else to see beyond judgment, to value honesty, kindness, and strength. She let his words sink in, feeling the warmth of his hand and the steady calm of his presence. For the first time, she began to believe that love could coexist with courage, that being herself could be more powerful than any criticism, and that standing up for what she knew was right could change not just her life, but the lives of those around her. Over the next few days, Ayana noticed subtle changes in the tribe. Some younger members began to approach her more openly, asking questions about the herbs she gathered, the lessons she had learned from her mother, and even sharing small smiles. While the elders remained cautious, the murmurs of gossip began to lose their sharpness. There was still judgment, but there was also curiosity, and for Ayana, that was progress. Mateo stayed close, but never in a way that overshadowed her. He continued to work alongside her, laugh with her, and listen to her stories. Each day, she felt herself growing stronger, more confident, and more certain of her own value. The fear that had once made her shrink seemed to lose its power with each supportive word, each small act of kindness, and each moment she realized she was not alone. One afternoon, while gathering firewood near the mountains, Iana paused to watch a hawk glide effortlessly across the sky. "It is free," she said quietly. "It moves as it chooses. Maybe I can be like that too." Mateo nodded. "You already are," he said. "You move through life with courage, with honesty, and with care. You are not bound by whispers or judgments. You are bound only by what you choose to believe about yourself." Gianna smiled softly, feeling a mixture of gratitude and hope. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging. The tribe's judgment would not disappear overnight, and the road to full acceptance of herself by others and of the bond she shared with Mateo would be long. But she also knew that she had found a companion who respected her, valued her, and believed in her strength. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the camp, Ayana felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would face the tribe, face the whispers, and face the judgments, not with anger but with courage, integrity, and the quiet strength of someone who knew her worth. And Mateo would be there, not to fight her battles for her, but to remind her that she had the power to stand tall on her own, and that she would never face life alone. The night fell, and the stars appeared, glittering like tiny sparks of hope in the dark sky. Yana looked up at them and took a deep breath. She had faced judgment today, but she had also stood firm. She had been seen, recognized, and valued. And though the challenges ahead were many, she felt ready to meet them, one step at a time, with courage, strength, and love guiding her path. The days following the ceremony brought both hope and tension for Ayana. While some of the younger tribe members had begun to look at her with curiosity and even admiration, the elders' disapproval had not faded. They watched her carefully, scrutinizing her every action and word. Even small mistakes or moments of hesitation were noted and whispered about. Gianna could feel their eyes, heavy with judgment, but she tried to focus on the moments that mattered, the moments she spent with Mateo, the moments she could be herself, and the moments when her own courage reminded her that she did not need universal approval to live fully. Mateo stayed near, as always, helping her with chores, encouraging her when fear crept in, and quietly teaching her that her worth was not tied to anyone else's opinions. He never tried to shield her entirely, nor did he dismiss her fears. Instead, he gave her the strength to face the scrutiny herself, while knowing that she was not alone. One morning, a meeting of the elders was called. Ayana was summoned, a sign that the tribe's judgment had moved from whispers to a more direct confrontation. The elders' faces were stern, their expressions hard as stone. The camp fell quiet as she approached the central fire, Mateo following just behind, his calm presence a quiet reassurance. The eldest among them, a man with deep lines etched into his face from years of leadership, spoke first. "Yana," he said, his voice steady and serious, "you have ignored our guidance. You have acted in ways that many consider improper. Your pride and your refusal to conform bring concern to the tribe." Yana felt her chest tighten, but she drew a deep breath. She had spent many nights preparing for moments like this in her mind, imagining herself standing tall, speaking with courage, and defending herself without anger. "I do not intend disrespect," she said quietly but firmly. "I honor our people and our traditions in my own way. But I also believe that being myself, strong, honest, and true, does not dishonor anyone. I do not hide who I am to satisfy others." The elders exchanged looks, some skeptical, some thoughtful. The older woman who had criticized her most harshly stepped forward, her voice sharp and filled with indignation. "You speak of being yourself, yet your choices cause division. Your relationship with the outsider, this Mateo, challenges our customs and sets an example that some may follow blindly. How can we allow that?" Mateo stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I do not wish to disrespect your traditions," he said, looking each elder in the eye. "But Ayana's strength, courage, and kindness are real. She does not need to hide her beauty or her character to be worthy of respect. If you cannot see her worth, that is your judgment, but it does not define her." A hush fell over the gathering. Some of the younger members watched silently, unsure of what to say or do. Others shifted nervously, clearly feeling the weight of this confrontation. For a moment, Ayana felt fear creep in, fear that her defiance would push the tribe further against her. But she also felt a fire rise within her, a quiet, determined strength that refused to bow to judgment that was unfair. "I am not asking for everyone's approval," she said softly, her voice carrying across the circle. "I am asking for understanding. I am asking for respect. I cannot change who I am, and I will not pretend to be someone I am not just to avoid discomfort. I will continue to honor this tribe, not by hiding, but by being honest, helpful, and kind." Some elders frowned, but others seemed to soften slightly, as if her words had struck a chord. The older woman, however, was not finished. "And what of the young ones?" she asked sharply. "Do you not think they watch you and will imitate what you do, rejecting the wisdom we have passed down?" Ayana met her gaze calmly. "The young ones will watch many things, yes, but they will also see courage. They will see honesty. And they will learn that respect and integrity are more important than conformity. I hope they see that. I cannot control everyone's thoughts, but I can live with truth and kindness." Mateo reached out, taking her hand gently. "And that is why she stands tall," he said. "Not because she is defiant, but because she is brave, wise, and full of heart. That is a lesson worth seeing, not criticizing." The fire crackled between them, the tension thick but slowly shifting. Some of the younger women, inspired by Ayana's courage, stepped forward timidly. We understand," one whispered. "You are strong and you help us. We admire you." Ayana felt her heart lift slightly. Small victories like this mattered, even if the elders' approval remained distant. She had begun to carve a place for herself, not by bending to others' will, but by standing firmly in her truth. The days that followed were not easy. A few of the elders continued to spread subtle criticisms, and some tribe members whispered behind her back. Ayana could not ignore it entirely, but she chose to focus on what she could control: her actions, her courage, and her connection with Mateo. Together, they worked on daily tasks, shared quiet laughter, and found solace in small moments of understanding. One afternoon, while gathering berries in the mountains, Ayana paused, looking out over the land that had been her home all her life. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth, and she felt the warmth of the sun on her skin. "Mateo," she said quietly, "sometimes I wonder if I can truly change how people see me. Will the elders ever accept that I am worthy just as I am?" Mateo smiled gently. "Perhaps not everyone will," he said, "but that does not matter. What matters is that you know your worth. What matters is that you are brave enough to stand tall, even when others judge. And what matters is that you do not walk this path alone." Yana felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had longed for someone who could see her fully, who could appreciate her courage, and who could help her find her own strength. Mateo had become that person. And now, with him by her side, she felt ready to face anything, even the harshest criticisms of her tribe. The following week, a dispute arose over a small misunderstanding in the camp. A few tribe members claimed that Ayana had overstepped her role, speaking too freely to the younger children, and giving advice that they felt should come only from elders. The whispers grew louder, and the older woman who had long criticized her was quick to amplify the complaints. Ayana felt the familiar surge of fear, but she refused to retreat. She calmly addressed the concerns, explaining her intentions and emphasizing that she only wished to guide the children with kindness and wisdom, not to challenge authority. Mateo stood nearby, silently supporting her, and when needed, he spoke up to remind the tribe of her integrity and good intentions. Slowly, the tension began to ease. Some of the younger members nodded in understanding, and even a few of the elders seemed to reconsider their judgment. Yana realized that her courage, combined with Mateo's support, was making a difference, not just for her, but for those who had been uncertain, those who had longed for an example of strength and integrity. One evening, as the sun set in shades of gold and rose over the mountains, Yana and Mateo sat together by the fire. The camp was quiet, the day's tensions finally giving way to calm. "It is not easy," Yana said softly, "to stand against people who have known each other for generations. Sometimes I feel like the whole world is against me." Mateo nodded, his hand gently brushing hers. "It will never be easy," he said, "but you are not alone. And every time you stand with courage, you inspire someone else to see the value of truth and kindness. You are changing things even if it is slow, and that is powerful." Yana smiled, feeling the warmth of hope spread through her. She had begun to understand that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. She could feel the strength growing inside her, a strength that came from knowing her own worth and having someone who believed in her completely. The nights were long, but the stars above seemed to shine brighter than ever. Yana would often lie awake, thinking of the challenges ahead, the judgment that still lingered and the life she hoped to build, one of honesty, love, and courage. She had faced criticism, whispered ridicule, and doubt, but she had also experienced understanding, support, and the first true moments of being seen. Mateo's presence was constant, steady, and reassuring. He did not try to erase the hardships, but he reminded her daily that she had the power to face them. And slowly, as days turned into weeks, Ayana began to feel a shift, not just in the tribe, but in herself. She was learning to stand firm in her identity, to embrace her curves, her strength, her laughter, and her heart, without shame. Even as some of the elders remained skeptical, Ayana felt a quiet confidence growing within her. She realized that she could not control every opinion or every judgment, but she could control how she responded. She could live fully, honestly, and with courage, knowing that she was worthy of respect and love. And so, under the wide, open sky, with the mountains standing tall around her, Yana felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. She had faced criticism, defended herself with dignity, and inspired others to question what they had always assumed. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time she felt ready to walk it. Fearful at times, yes, but strong, proud, and accompanied by someone who truly believed in her. The days grew warmer as spring moved into summer, and Yana felt the gentle rhythm of life settle around the camp. The whispers had not entirely vanished, old habits die slowly, but they no longer had the power to shake her. She had learned that courage and self-respect could outweigh judgment, and Mateo's steady presence reminded her every day that she was not alone. Together, they moved through the tribe's routines, working, laughing, and quietly reshaping the perception of those around them. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Ayana noticed a subtle change. Younger women and even some men approached her with questions, not about her appearance but about her experiences, her knowledge, and her perspective. Some asked about her lessons with the children, others sought advice about tending the garden or preparing herbal remedies. It was not approval in the old, formal sense, but recognition of her wisdom and strength. Yana felt a sense of quiet pride. It was slow, almost imperceptible, but the tide was turning. She had stood firm, faced criticism, and defended herself without anger. And in doing so, she had begun to shift the hearts of those around her, one small step at a time. Mateo noticed the change too. "You are making a difference," he said quietly as they walked along a sunlit path toward the stream. "It may not be obvious to everyone yet, but it is happening. People are starting to see who you really are." Yana smiled, feeling a mixture of gratitude and humility. "I never imagined it would be this hard," she admitted. "Sometimes I wonder if I am doing the right thing or if I am just stirring conflict unnecessarily." Mateo shook his head gently. "You are doing the right thing because you are honest and true. That is more important than comfort. And the fact that you have remained kind, patient, and helpful even while being criticized, that is what changes hearts, not anger or resentment." Their bond had grown deeper than either could have imagined. What had begun as admiration and mutual respect had blossomed into a quiet, steady love. It was not dramatic or boastful. It was calm, dependable, and full of understanding. Mateo's presence had given Ayanna courage, and her bravery had allowed him to witness the strength of a woman who could face judgment without breaking. Together, they were a living example of respect, trust, and love that did not demand conformity. The elders, while slow to acknowledge it, began to notice subtle signs of change. The older woman who had once criticized Ayanna most harshly remained stern, but even she could not ignore the way the children followed Ayanna's guidance, the respect the younger women showed, and the calm strength she displayed every day. The murmurs of disapproval had less bite, replaced slowly by curiosity and a hesitant acknowledgement of her integrity. One afternoon, during a communal gathering, the eldest among the elders addressed the tribe. His voice carried the weight of experience but also a tone of reflection. "We have watched Ayanna," he said. "She has faced criticism, whispers, and judgment with dignity and courage. She has guided the children, helped the tribe, and stood firm in her values. Perhaps it is time we recognize that strength, kindness, and honesty are as important as tradition." The crowd murmured, some in agreement, some hesitant, but the words had a powerful effect. For the first time, a clear acknowledgement came from the very people who had questioned her worth. Ayanna felt her heart lift, a mixture of relief and quiet triumph filling her chest. Mateo stood beside her, smiling softly. "See," he whispered. "You have not only stayed true to yourself, but you have shown others what courage looks like. That is a victory." Ayanna took a deep breath, feeling a wave of gratitude toward him. "I could not have done it without you," she said softly. "Your belief in me, it gave me strength I did not know I had." As the days turned into weeks, the acceptance within the tribe continued to grow. While some still held onto older judgments, they began to respect Ayanna's place in the community. She was no longer merely a figure of whispers. She had become a person whose courage and kindness could not be denied. Her presence inspired others to think differently, to question assumptions, and to value qualities that went beyond appearances. Mateo and Ayanna's love grew in quiet, profound ways. They shared meals under the stars, walked hand in hand along the river, and supported each other through the challenges of daily life. They laughed freely, celebrated small victories, and comforted each other during moments of doubt. Their relationship had become a foundation not only for their own happiness, but also for the example they set for the tribe. One evening, as they sat on a hill overlooking the camp, Ayanna reflected on how far she had come. The memories of judgment, whispers, and ridicule seemed distant now, though not forgotten. "It feels almost unreal," she said quietly. "I remember how it felt to fear every glance, every comment, and now I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel free." Mateo squeezed her hand gently. "You are free," he said. "Free to be yourself, free to love, and free to inspire. And you have done it without losing your kindness, your strength, or your heart. That is rare, and that is beautiful." The stars began to emerge, shining like tiny sparks of hope in the deepening night sky. Ayanna leaned against Mateo, feeling the warmth of his presence and the steady calm it brought. She realized that love and courage could coexist, that respect could grow even in places resistant to change, and that standing firm in one's truth could create ripples far beyond what she could see. The elders, too, continued to observe, now with thoughtful expressions rather than disapproval. Some of the younger members approached Ayanna to ask questions, seek advice, or simply share a smile. The community had not entirely changed, but it had shifted enough to allow space for authenticity, for courage, and for love. In the following weeks, a special ceremony was planned to honor the contributions of those who had shown exceptional courage and service to the tribe. Ayanna was invited, not as a participant in error or controversy, but as someone recognized for her wisdom, kindness, and bravery. As she stepped forward, Mateo at her side, she felt a mixture of pride, gratitude, and humility. The eldest spoke to the tribe, praising Ayanna for her guidance, her strength, and the example she had set. She has shown us that courage is more than words, that kindness is more than appearances, and that integrity is more powerful than fear. Let us honor her, not just for what she has done, but for who she is. Ayanna felt tears well in her eyes. The recognition was not the goal, it had never been, but it was a profound affirmation of her journey. She had faced judgment, criticism, and fear, and she had emerged with dignity, courage, and love. Mateo squeezed her hand gently, sharing in her quiet triumph. The ceremony ended and the tribe celebrated together. Music, laughter, and shared meals filled the air. For the first time, Ayanna felt completely at home, not just in the camp but in herself. She had reclaimed her place in the world, not by changing who she was, but by embracing her true self and standing firm in her values. Later that night, as the camp quieted and the fire burned low, Ayanna and Mateo sat together under the stars. "I never imagined it could be like this," she said softly. "That love, respect, and courage could coexist so fully, that I could feel accepted without losing who I am." Mateo smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You earned it," he said, "not through force or anger, but through honesty, courage, and kindness, and you showed others that they could do the same. Your journey is a gift, not just to yourself, but to everyone who has witnessed it." Ayanna leaned against him, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. For so long, she had been judged, shamed, and misunderstood. Now she felt complete, not because everyone approved, but because she had embraced her own truth and found love that matched her courage. In the days that followed, life in the camp settled into a peaceful rhythm. Ayanna continued to guide the younger members, work with the community, and nurture the garden and children she cared for. Mateo remained at her side, his quiet support a constant source of strength. The tribe's respect for her grew, and even the elders began to acknowledge that true strength and beauty could take many forms. Ayanna often reflected on the journey she had taken, from whispers of shame to recognition and love. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. She had learned that love could exist without demands or conformity, and that respect could grow even in the most traditional places when met with honesty, kindness, and unwavering integrity. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, Mateo spoke softly. "We have faced so much, yet here we are, stronger, closer, and ready for whatever comes next. Do you feel it too?" Ayanna smiled, feeling the warmth of the fading sun on her skin. "Yes," she said, "I feel it. I feel alive, loved, and at peace. I feel free." Mateo took her hand in his, holding it gently. "Then let us continue this path together," he said. "No judgment, no fear, only love, courage, and truth." And so, under the open sky, with the mountains standing like silent witnesses to their journey, Ayanna and Mateo embraced a life built on courage, respect, and love. The tribe had shifted, hearts had opened, and Ayanna had proven that being true to oneself could create change, inspire others, and bring a love that could withstand prejudice, judgment, and time. The story of Ayanna's courage and Mateo's unwavering support became part of the camp's memory, a tale told to younger generations about the power of integrity, the strength of the human spirit, and the beauty of love that sees the soul rather than the surface. Ayanna had faced the whispers, the judgments, and the shaming. She had stood tall, faced fear, and embraced love fully. And in the end, she had found acceptance, not by changing herself, but by being true, courageous, and unafraid to shine. Under the starlit sky, hand in hand with Mateo, Iana looked out over the land she had always called home. She had not only survived, but she had thrived. She had inspired change, found love, and proven that courage and kindness could overcome even the harshest judgments. And in that moment, she knew that her story and the lessons it carried would live on, shining like the stars above.